think one of the most common complaints that people have, like Sam said, is that webinars just take a lot of time and energy. And previously, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but it often felt like there wasn't enough of a connection between the webinars that we're running and our revenue or KPI goals. The connection just kind of seemed really vague and ambiguous. So we're going to start talking right away about how marketers can alleviate those issues. So first, I kind of want to hear from everyone here, how long are you actually spending on average to produce a webinar? Looks like it's a bit of a battle, but 4 to 8 weeks is definitely winning here. And that is definitely closer to my experience with webinars over the last bunch of years. I think it's really important for us to recognize here, if most of us are running webinars once a month, and it takes us 4 to 8 weeks to run a webinar. I don't know how many 8-week periods you guys have in a month, but mine looks closer to 4 weeks. So that is a lot of time. When we're feeling that time crunch, like most marketers do, it's a very unfortunate side effect. That's why the work we produce can become meh or kind of feel mediocre. Earlier this year, Lumen 5 ran a survey around how marketers are using AI in the workplace. I think AI often comes up as a solution when we're talking about how marketers just don't have time, don't have bandwidth, don't have the skills required to run things like webinars consistently and all the time. Unsurprisingly, in this report, which we are going to be sending a link to that in the chat, 40% of marketers are using AI in their day-to-day, and most of them say that the number one use is content creation. It's a very common solution to the resource recession that a lot of teams are in. I think we all know there's a lot of discourse and discussion about it, but for now, at least, it does feel like AI is sort of here to stay. So it's kind of important for us as marketers to understand how we can use it effectively, because AI is so good at creating really mediocre content. So when we're talking about meh webinars, how can it possibly make our webinars better? There is a quote out there about AI content and how it becomes apparent so quickly when writing or art is created without that human experience. And if we kind of think about it, that is the fun part about being a marketer. And I would think we can admit that AI is not necessarily going to be able to do that, to pull from shared cultural experiences and create that connection right away. So using AI to automate the boring parts kind of takes that pressure off of your team and lets them leverage their curiosity, their expertise, and of course, that human experience. So what do I kind of mean when I'm talking about the boring parts? So I'll give you some examples of how we use AI here at Lumen 5. What it kind of means is you've already got your content. Maybe you've written the entire webinar script and you need to make it into a shorter script because you're making a promotional video clip. AI can do that. You can upload that draft and ask it to summarize it for you or summarize a part of it for you. You can use it to create multiple hooks for a draft that you've written to use on social media. My favorite way is actually using a language learning model like ChatGPT to kind of proofread your content. So you can go to ChatGPT, you can say, hey, I'm a marketer, I'm writing a webinar, you are an audience member, you care about X, Y, Z. What feedback would you give me based on that? Kind of copy paste your draft in it. It'll read that piece for you and give you feedback that can help with your next draft. So I find that really, really useful as a first pass. I think writing, you can get really stuck in your own head. It's helpful to have a robot kind of objectively tell you what this piece is or isn't accomplishing. So I call this section making your webinars live forever. And to Sam's point, a lot of times we find that the assets you're creating adjacent to the webinar might end up outperforming the actual live event. And that's something that we consider really important here at Lumen 5 because we have a small team. It takes a lot of bandwidth and effort, like we've kind of covered, to make a webinar. So making sure that that webinar is going to continue to have an impact and continue to demonstrate its effectiveness is really important to us to be able to keep making webinars. And we particularly use AI to help us with certain parts of that to create those clips to make sure that we can create an impact of our webinars. So our system looks a little bit like this. It's a little messier than Sam's. We take our pre-recorded content, which is including the full webinar recording, and we make it live across channels for as long as we can. So we'll kind of repurpose it into a blog. We have a Too Long Didn't Watch series where we'll summarize, including this webinar as well. And something that we really particularly like to do is take that big webinar and cut it into shorter video clips to go on social, which in turn can go into an email. You can embed it back into a blog. You can post it multiple times. So this is sort of our life cycle of a webinar. You can see how one really bandwidth heavy piece can expand its reach over time across social, across blog, and across email. And of course, we actually also use webinars to make short clips for sales, which they use to engage prospects or to highlight certain things with our customers. They're really great because they're attention grabbing. A lot of times when you're talking to higher level executives or C-level decision makers, they're maybe not necessarily interested in watching a 45-minute webinar, but maybe, for example, you had a 1-minute clip from your head of AI that you can cut out and send it over to them. Give a little bit of a wrap up of what we're really talking about when we're talking about webinars. Take a lot of time to do, and we don't often have an easy time connecting them to our goals. The two major aspects that I really want us to take away from today is that video content can help drive engagement. The more ways you can create video and the more ways and places that your video can live out on the web, the more engagement you're going to be able to drive. To Sam's point, this sort of content only increases over time after your live event. And the other way is actually what we do here, which is conversion through data. So specifically interesting to us is pull data, Q&A data, and chat data from your live events. You're able to identify high intent actions during a webinar and then set up opportunities for your audience members to show that high intent. You can directly make your live webinar events into conversion points. Essentially, we're saying like, hey, if you are on a webinar and you answered a poll in a certain way, that might show us that you have really high intent to learn a little bit more about Wistia, learn a little bit more about Lumen 5. By identifying those people in your data and following up with personalized outreach, either from the marketing or the sales team, you're using your webinars to additionally create that one-to-one dialogue and directly draw a line between the webinar that you created and your overall business and marketing goals. So drive engagement through video and drive conversion through data.